So the wait is finally over. Nintendo has officially launched the Nintendo Switch 2. I finally got mine from Walmart just the other day. And I think everyone has the same question in mind on whether or not the Nintendo Switch 2 is a big step over the Nintendo Switch 1. Is the new price, a very high price, justifiable for what this can do? And whether or not there are actually any launch games. I know it has Mario Kart World, but other than that, are there any launch games that are worth your time? Now this video will specifically be looking at the Nintendo Switch 2 and the console itself, and of course Mario Kart World, along with a couple of games, exclusive games, and also the GameCube games that have been added. When it comes to the accessories like the Pro Controller or any of the cases that are out for the Nintendo Switch 2, I'll be looking at that in another video in the future. So enough talking, let's unbox this and set this up. So here you can see the Nintendo Switch 2 box. It's quite tiny, really surprising, very minimalistic, and I kind of like it. Now, where do you open this from? I have found the latch. Let's open this up. So as you can see, we have the Nintendo Switch 2, the screen itself. We've got the little Joy-Cons, or the Switch 2 Joy-Cons. So let's bring it out. Size and feel-wise, they're basically the same. They actually kind of look bigger. Wow. Okay, we're gonna open this up. Let's bring out the thing which actually does the thing for the Nintendo Switch 2, which is the screen. Bring it up, you're gonna see the camera and the light. Okay, cool. Obviously not much to see because it is off. Okay, what else do we have in the box? Let's see what this latch here is. Alright, so you get your Mario Kart World code on this little paper over here. Obviously I'm not gonna show it to you because I'm gonna redeem this. We got the health and safety information that no one reads. HDMI cable, which is appreciated. I know you can use your own, but it's really good. It's always good to kind of have more of these. We've got the Joy-Con latches, or whatever you call them, the thing that kind of slide onto the Joy-Cons. I do kind of I like how they look actually, because I like how they're color coded, and they also look a lot slimmer. If you can see that in the camera, it's kind of cool actually. We'll see how these fit on the Joy-Cons. Going deeper into the box, we have the little brick to be able to charge and also plug in the dock. It's a very standard USB-C dock or brick over here. Here we have the USB-C to USB-C cable. Bring this out. Oh, this is gonna be the little Joy-Con attachment controller thing. Looks very similar to the original Nintendo Switch Joy-Con controller thing. And finally, here we have the dock, which does look kind of nice actually. It has a much sleeker look in my opinion. We got two USB ports on the side. Let me see if I can slip off the back to kind of see. Oh, there you go. We've got the AC adapter port over here. So that's where the AC adapter goes. The HDMI out, and of course the LAN cable port. This is something that was not in the original Switch. I know it was in the Switch OLED, I believe. But that's a cool addition if you are someone that likes playing games online. It's quite useful. Back seems a little flimsy. To kind of put this back on. Alright, took a few tries, but got it back on. Now I'm going to take a minute to put the screen protector on the screen, and then we'll move on to transferring all the data from my Nintendo Switch 1 onto the Nintendo Switch 2. So here we have the Nintendo Switch 2 right next to my Nintendo Switch OLED. You can see that there is a substantial size difference. The screen definitely looks much bigger than my Switch OLED. Obviously we're going to turn this on to kind of see how that looks, and also start the whole transfer process so you can kind of see how that works. Nice, seeing the Nintendo logo. Just going to bring the camera up close here. Alright, so we've kind of started the update process, as you might be able to tell. Alright, so it's kind of giving us a couple of instructions on how to use the Switch itself. The Joy-Cons did snap on pretty well when I kind of first put it together. We will obviously kind of do more tests later on as well of me removing it and putting it back. Actually, for the purpose of this video, it does seem that they want us to kind of remove it, so let's do that. So I'm going to press the button. Am I doing it? Alright, there you go. Okay, nice. Look at the Joy-Cons. So I will do that later. I'm just going to keep going through this on this menu on the screen so we can kind of get through the initial set of settings. All right, so it is, okay, so it is now updating. All right, perfect. So as soon as we updated the Switch 2, we get an option to transfer our old system. So I'm just going to press A. I do not have a micro SD express card yet because I don't really see the need at the moment. So we'll do that a little bit later down the line, maybe in a future video. So it hasn't really told me to like turn my Switch 1 on. So I'm just going to keep going with the prompts. Just going to see what it does. Right now it is saying bring the system close together. The original Nintendo Switch is close together. Didn't say anything about turning it on. I'm just going to, you know what? I'm going to turn it on just to be sure. So we got a Nintendo Switch 2 over here. We got Nintendo Switch 1 over here. My Nintendo Switch 1 which is doing a download. But I'm going to keep going. Alright, so we're getting a couple of prompts on what to do on the Switch 1. I'm just going to bring the Switch 1 in front so you can kind of see what I'm doing. There you go. So we have an option in the system settings for the Nintendo Switch 1 which says system transfer to the Nintendo Switch 2. So let's click on that. Alright, we got to do an update. Alright, right after the update we get the prompt to system transfer. Alright, it just made sure to let us know that the Nintendo Switch 2 needs to be nearby. So the cool thing is it does give you a list of all the save data that will be moving over and it will be deleted from this system itself. As you can tell now, due to me needing to connect the Switch 1 to an AC adapter, it's a little bit challenging because the port is at the bottom of the Switch 1. Awesome, so we've got the prompt to start downloading. So I'm going to press start download. Now we shall wait. Awesome, so the process was surprisingly not that long. So why don't we go ahead, press the home menu. Nice. Of course, get a bit of celebratory music. Perfect, wow, like it literally transferred over and it is kind of showing me all my games that were on my home screen for my Switch 1. And it's basically, I'm assuming, started the download process for all of these games, which is great. Now why don't we go back for a second before we jump into the dock mode. So before we actually go to the dock and actually playing it on the TV, I want to have a quick look at the Nintendo Switch 2. And you can kind of see here, it's pretty sleek. I'm going to bring up my Nintendo Switch here. So you kind of see it's pretty sleek, but it's kind of big as well. It's I won't say it's too heavy. It's more spread out weight-wise. And to be honest, one thing that I did notice is just kind of holding it like this, because it's pretty skinny, pretty sleek that way. But when I'm holding it, it doesn't feel as comfortable. And it's not that like the Nintendo Switch 1 itself was super comfortable, but because it was a little bit thicker, at least for me with my bigger hands, it just kind of fit a little bit better. So that's kind of one thing that's already sticking out to me, and I don't know if I honestly do not play my Switch, like the Switch One in general handheld. I usually play it on the TV, and it only be when I'm traveling when I actually play it like this. So it might not impact me as much, but I can imagine it impacting you if you're someone that primarily plays it like this. One cool thing is that it does have the USB slot at the top and at the bottom. So if you're playing it handheld and you want to charge it, a lot of times if you have the wire at the bottom, it's kind of annoying. You're kind of dangling it around like this. But it being at the top makes it a lot easier for you to kind of charge and play at the same time. I honestly was going to do like a close-up to kind of show you every little bits and pieces of the Switch, but everything is kind of the same. I'll obviously kind of talk about the Joy-Cons really soon, but basically everything else, I'll just bring up the kickstand at the back. The kickstand is right here in the back. It's kind of sleek as well. It's really heavy in terms of like you gotta put a little bit of effort into pushing it up and down, which is great. So you know it'll kind of be stable. It's not like those old kickstands that we got like way back for the Nintendo Switch 1. But otherwise, let's move on to the Joy-Cons. So here we have the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm gonna press this little button here and out it comes. You no longer you need to do the whole rail thing. We're gonna slot it in. You just kind of take it out with the press of a button. If you're gonna put it back in, there you go. It just snaps in. It's magnetic. It's awesome. And let me just kind of, I don't even know how to do this. I'm kind of worried I'm gonna break it or something. Oof. Okay. When I'm doing that, I can kind of feel the Switch. I'm not gonna do this too much, but I can feel the Switch on this little crevice here, kind of bending backwards. I won't mess with it. I doubt a lot of people will be doing that. But it is secure. Like I'm holding it like this. It's secure. It's not coming out. You're playing it anyway. I know I'm covering my face with it, but you're playing it wherever, which way, you're good. It's not going to snap off. I will kind of miss the old school, like the Switch rail thing. You know, I got so used to it. It used to be such an awesome thing to kind of perfectly place it in the rail, like align it perfectly, get that snapping sound, the whole Switch sound that was kind of based off of this. So I will kind of miss it because, you know, obviously I've had this for like 8 years, but I'm okay with moving on to the magnetic rails so that it is a little bit sleeker and it is a little bit quicker in snapping it off and then back on. So as you saw a little while back, we did transfer everything onto the Switch 2. All my data and everything is still on the Switch 1, which is great. So if you still want to play stuff on the Switch 1 for whatever reason, it's still there. I didn't think that would happen. I thought they would just kind of fully erase Switch 1. Now that we have everything on the Switch 2, we should check this out on the dock. So here we are with the Nintendo Switch 2. I have the controller connected into the grip. We have the Switch 2 in our dock, and I will turn this on. You hear like a little chime this time around anytime you turn it on, which is kind of cool. I am on a 1440p monitor with HDR, so hopefully you kind of see the bells and whistle, although the HDR does look kind of washed out right now. Now, I will do my best to make sure that you can see the screen as clearly as possible. But when it comes to the UI, as you can see, it looks the same. It is the same. The only kind of different thing that you might notice here and there is kind of the menu that's on the bottom. There's like a little circular wheel that kind of keeps going round and round. When you click on something, it just has like a cool animation to it. That's it. Now, there are a couple of cool settings that I did find that are pretty useful for a lot of people. One of them is that you can actually tell the Nintendo Switch 2 to stop charging around 90%. This is something that you see in a lot of phones. A lot of new devices have this to basically preserve your battery life. If you're someone that plans on using your Switch 2 in handheld a lot, so you need the charge to last for a long time, consider turning this on. The other cool thing that I found, which is pretty useful, is for HDR. You could actually turn on to basically only get turned on when compatible software that has HDR is being played. So it doesn't force HDR onto everything, because a lot of times with the tech we have right now, when a device like this is forcing HDR, sometimes things just look really washed out. They just don't look good. And of course, a 120Hz output mode. A Nintendo Switch 2 with 120Hz? That is of course awesome. So I'm really happy we finally get 120Hz. Glad that Nintendo is in 2025. Finally, more like 2020. I think, yeah, more like 2020. Now, since we're here, why don't we check out one of the things that I feel like might be a concern, and that is the space. So the Switch 2 comes with 256 gigabytes of space built in. As you can tell, I have 82.8 gigabytes remaining after I did the transfer over from my Switch 1. What does this include? What do I have right now? Well, I have Fortnite, Mario Kart, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the Switch 2 version, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Astral Chain, Metro Prime Remastered, the GameCube Classics, Super Mario's Wonders, Nintendo Switch Sports, Mario Party Superstars, Clubhouse Games, Nintendo 64. Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff. You can tell I have a lot of stuff here. It's nothing too crazy, but I basically have 82 gigabytes remaining, so I'm gonna have to start deleting stuff very soon once the new Donkey Kong game comes out, the new Zelda or Mario comes out possibly. So keep that in mind. Like the micro SD express cards are kind of expensive at the moment, at least in my opinion. So if you feel like you don't really have that many games, or at least that many big games, big space taking games, you should be fine for a while. But just keep that in mind. Of course, a big selling point of the Nintendo Switch 2 more recently was that with Nintendo Switch Online, you will get access to GameCube games. So why don't we jump into this and also talk about the Joy-Con. I haven't played Soul Calibur in a while, so I probably won't be doing that good. But I just want to talk about the Joy-Con. The Joy-Cons do feel really good. It feels the same as the original Joy-Cons, just a little bit bigger. The buttons feel quite good. I will say that because it has that matte finish to it, it does feel sleek. It does feel pretty good. The triggers on the back are basically the same. I'm not a big fan of those. I'm someone that prefers those proper triggers that you get in a PlayStation or in an Xbox. Something where you can kind of control, let's say like a gun, or if you're playing a racing game, you can control the acceleration or the brakes more precisely. In this case, you can just tell it's just a button. It's nothing else. Same thing with the D-pad. I'm not a big fan of it. It is a little bit too spread out for me. So when I'm playing fighting games like this, it's just not something that I would recommend. So if you want to do any combos, anything like that, you can. It just doesn't feel good. You can't move between them easily. It's a little bit of work. Of course, one of the new features on the Joy-Cons is the game chat button. So if you click it, I have Nintendo Switch Online, so it should work. It'll come up who will be using game chat. I will say it will be me. Welcome to game chat. So it gives you some instructions about game chat. You gotta of course agree to the game chat terms and conditions. We gotta confirm game chat. We gotta use our phone number for the game chat. What's happening here? So you do have to kind of put your phone number in, as you can see. And then basically you need to kind of approve your friend that you will want to have game chat enabled with, which kind of makes sense. So as you can see, after all that work, you can now create a chat. There's also a chat list here for all the chat lists or chats that you've created in the past. It's a cool thing to have, something that I feel like a lot of people that do play online with their friends would want to have. So I'll definitely test this out. Unfortunately, a lot of my friends do not have Nintendo Switch 2 right now. I'm kind of the only one at the moment. So I really won't be able to test this out for a while, but hopefully someone will pick it up. Now, since we were talking about the Joy-Con, one of the key concerns that a lot of people have is drift. So from the get-go, why don't we just check it out? Why don't we check it out how things are going with my Joy-Cons that we just got? We go to calibrate control sticks in the controller menu in the system settings. We'll test out the right one. All right, I mean, it looks good. It looks okay. Just to make sure. Okay. Things look fine. Let's check out the left one. Yep, it's in the center. I don't see it getting stuck anywhere or anything like that. Look, at the end of the day, these aren't Hall effect sticks, so they are prone to drift. And let's be honest, they will at some point drift. That's basically a guarantee. As long as it doesn't happen quickly enough, I think we should be okay. I have a bunch of Joy-Cons that are still good. They still don't have any issues. So it doesn't mean that you need to have Hall effect sticks or TMR sticks. But Nintendo, with them being prone to this issue and being known for this issue, I would have thought they would have taken that step forward to get Hall effect sticks added. But this will be a test in progress. So I am on Fortnite, and I just wanted to quickly show you the mouse feature for the Joy-Con. As you can see, I'm just gonna take the right one here, just put it on. I'm just gonna use my hand just so you can see it, and just put it on a flat surface like this, and you are able to use it as a mouse. Now, I did connect my Logitech to the dock itself through a USB, and it doesn't really work. I couldn't really find it using a Bluetooth either when I was connecting it in the menu. It might just be this specific mouse, but I do know that you are supposed to be able to connect your mouse to the Switch 2 and use it in a similar fashion as this for any mouse control like things, which is cool. As you can kind of see, the mouse feature is pretty good. It feels a little jumpy. You can kind of mess around with the settings to kind of make it feel a little bit better for you. But it feels a little cramped just kind of holding it like this because you're using this to shoot. It doesn't feel perfect. It's hard to get used to. Doesn't mean you can't get used to it. I'm sure in some way you can. But just kind of me looking around right now, I'm already feeling my hands kind of feeling really cramped up. So I'm not really enjoying that. At the end of the day, it's to each their own, right? It is kind of up to you as to how you want to play this game. But even like when it comes to buttons, you still have to use the face buttons to do things. Definitely not ideal. Not ideal in my opinion. Since we're here, one of the things that I did want to test out was my web camera, my Elgato Facecam, and see how that works on the Nintendo Switch 2. So I have plugged this in to the USB slot on the dock. So it doesn't seem to recognize the Elgato Facecam. Okay, so I did bring another USB-C cable. So it doesn't seem like my Elgato Facecam is working with the Nintendo Switch 2. It could be the camera itself, or it could be the USB-C cable. Just something to note, I have tested this out on my own PC on the side here. It does work. So it might just be a compatibility thing. Now that we had a chance to look at the dock mode for the Switch 2, go through some of the games, the settings, things like that, why don't we go back, talk about some of the differences between the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. So looking at build quality, it is a premium product. It does feel like it's expensive. And it's not that like the Switch 1 felt cheap, but it kind of had a very plasticky feel. Whereas this one, they have like this film or this kind of like matte finish over it, which does kind of give it that premium look. But it also has like a really soft feel, the soft touch feel, which I kind of like. Like I said, in terms of gripping, it doesn't feel great because of that as well. It kind of adds to it not feeling like a good gripping system. But Nintendo definitely did not cheap out, and why should they? And the same goes for the dock. The dock itself as well does seem to be kind of built pretty well. It has like a cool kind of latch in the back, like you see here, to kind of plug everything in. I will say that this part, because obviously this is kind of where you put the Switch in, this part is a little squishy. Like it feels like if I put a little bit more pressure on it, it could possibly break. It could be just my dock, but yeah, that's not great. And I don't know if this is a scratch resistant dock. So if any of you had bought the earlier Nintendo Switch or the Switch when it first came out, there were a lot of cases of Nintendo Switches getting scratched when you would put it in the dock and take it out. I've already put a screen protector on my Switch 2, so I should be good. But yeah, we'll have to wait for some reports. But if you're someone that's buying a Switch 2, like just put a screen protector on it. So one of the big things that is in people's minds when it comes to the Switch 2 is the screen itself. For the original Nintendo Switch, we did have the LCD screen in the original release, and then also on the Switch Lite, but then we got the Switch OLED version later on, and this became a very popular device for the Switch family. So you would think that the Switch 2 would have an OLED screen, but it doesn't. It does have an LCD screen. And having used this for a while, I will say that the screen is pretty good. Now, is it better than the Nintendo Switch OLED? That's something that you have to decide. The OLED screen, of course, looks more vibrant, the colors pop, and the image does look a little bit sharper. But when I was using my Nintendo Switch 2, I did not really miss it too much. This is because the screen itself looks really, really good. It is a high resolution screen compared to the Nintendo Switch. So that of course plays a big role. But just in general, whatever technology they're using with this LCD screen, it does make it stand out quite a bit. It's very surprising, especially if you're accustomed to using OLED panels in your home for your monitor or for your TV. The screen is also 120Hz, so there's going to be a lot of games that will be able to take advantage of the 120Hz panel, which is again a big step up. Like I said, there's a lot to love about this screen, and you will not miss the OLED panel, in my opinion. Another thing to note, which is something that I was surprised by, was the sound. The sound on the Switch 2 itself is quite good. It is very, very loud. A lot louder than I thought it would be. Not that the original Nintendo Switch does not get loud. Everything just feels a little bit more crisp, a little bit more clear with the Nintendo Switch 2. For me, at least, more than that, What I loved was what is available in the settings menu for the audio for the Nintendo Switch 2. If you're someone like me that has a 5.1 surround sound setup at home, the Nintendo Switch 2 actually has a virtual surround sound setting that you can enable in the audio setting. Now, this is very similar to what you might see on the PS5 with the Tempest Audio, or on the Xbox where you also have access to Dolby Atmos. For someone that really appreciates audio like me, having this option in the Nintendo Switch 2 was a big win, and I can finally put my Sonos to use for the Nintendo Switch. Another big difference that you might notice is due to the storage and the type of storage being used in the Nintendo Switch 2, things will finally load a little faster. And I wanted to put this to the test. I wanted to test out a game that does not have a Nintendo Switch 2 version yet. I also wanted to test out a Nintendo Switch 2 upgraded game as well. And then, of course, I want to go into the dreaded Nintendo eShop to see how quickly that loads. So for my first test, I used Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I haven't played the game a lot, so it was kind of fun to just kind of jump in for a second. It kind of reignited that Super Smash Bros. Love that I have in me. Getting back to it, I just wanted to quickly load into a 1v1 game in Super Smash Bros. And loading into the game where we started getting the countdown, it was around 6.31 seconds on the Nintendo Switch 2. On the Nintendo Switch, on the other hand, it went up all the way to 8.88 seconds. Now, that's not a huge amount or a huge jump, but it is still 2 seconds more. This is a game that does not have a Nintendo Switch 2 upgraded version for it. So a lot of times we see this with PS5 or for Xbox. When there is a game where they're upgraded or updated to be able to take advantage of that tech, they do tend to load faster. So the fact that that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is loading faster just by itself on its own there is pretty impressive. Now, if that did not convince you, why don't we go over to Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the Switch 2 edition. On the Switch 2, just loading into my save, I'm pretty far into the game, it took 8.21 seconds. You might look at the number and think, hey, that's pretty long. That's a little lengthy, no? It is not, because when we go over to the Nintendo Switch, it took up to 21.10 seconds, which I did not realize how long this took when I was first playing this on the Switch, but it is long. So we are cutting down basically 13 seconds between the Switch 1 and the Switch 2 version of this game. Now for my final test, let's go over to the Nintendo eShop to see how this loads on the Switch 2. And on the Switch 2, it loads in 3.36 seconds, and that is basically with things actually loaded up. So you can kind of go around and buy a game if you want to buy a game. What about the Nintendo Switch? It takes 6.83 seconds with a question mark at the end, because as you will see in the video, a lot of the items were just not loading. Nothing was loading on my screen. I was trying to go up and down in the Nintendo eShop. And this is a very common occurrence on the Nintendo eShop on the original Switch. So the fact that I can get into the eShop in 3 seconds on Nintendo Switch 2 with everything being loaded is a big win. Of course, once you've loaded into the game, now you want to know how the Switch 2 games actually run or feel, or if there's any big difference there. Now with Mario Kart World, I honestly don't notice that much of a difference because we don't have Mario Kart World on the Nintendo Switch. And just in terms of how it looks great, and honestly it looks as good as Mario Kart 8. So I'm not able to accurately judge Mario Kart World that way. It does look like a good, vibrant game. But why don't we go over to Fortnite? On Nintendo Switch 1, Fortnite will run at 30 FPS, whereas on Switch 2, it does run at 60 FPS, and it looks a lot better in my opinion. This is of course great for anyone that is a big Fortnite fan. I know there's a lot of you, so this will be a big win for anyone that wants to continue playing Fortnite. Similarly with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, this is a known fact that there is an upgraded version like I mentioned earlier. So that upgraded version does run at 60 FPS and it looks really crisp, it looks really good. I'm not too sure how far they're pushing in terms of resolution, but the game does look really good on my 4K TV. And anytime it was switched back and forth between the Nintendo Switch 1 version and the Switch 2, it feels night and day. It just feels like a much more smoother game. I do want to replay the game now just to kind of re-experience the entire game, playing it at 60 FPS. Now I didn't pick up Cyberpunk 2077, but I do know that the game runs around 30 to 40 FPS depending on the mode, the performance mode that you use for Nintendo Switch 2, which is great. The only worry that I have after speaking about how games are running so much better on Nintendo Switch 2 is whether this is applicable to any new AAA games that will be coming out later down the line. The PS5 and the Series X can run Cyberpunk 2077 at 60 FPS, and they are much powerful systems. Of course, the Nintendo Switch 2 is a handheld system, so there's only so much that it can do, but it also limits it in terms of any AAA games that we might get in the future. And this is coming from someone that has a Steam Deck. The Steam Deck is great, but I have reached a point now where a lot of new games that come out don't really run well, and I just play them on my PC, which is not a big problem for many. But of course, you would want to be able to experience those games on your handheld, even if they do run well enough. And even if it is 30 to 40 FPS stable with good graphic settings, I think most of us would be happy with that. And that's kind of where my concern comes in, where I'm not too sure if this is something that will be, if this tech will last as long as we would hope for it to. This is just me predicting right now. We don't know what the future holds or what this tech can actually do, but I'll be more than happy to be proven wrong. So when I connected to the Nintendo Switch 2, I used my 5 GHz band, and I did notice a little bit of issues here and there with the connectivity or in terms of the bars that it had. It wasn't perfect, but you might want to light a match in there. Hank, I've been home for 5 hours. How long were you in there? Well, let's get to it. The Switch 2 is out. We have one game for it so far, Mario Kart World. This one game. Let's not count Welcome Tour. How can someone be okay spending all that money for one game? Yeah, so if you include Mario Kart World and the Welcome Tour, we do kind of have just 2 exclusive new games for the Nintendo Switch 2, which isn't a lot. And if you go back to Nintendo Switch 1, it was kind of similar, but we did get Breath of the Wild, which did kind of change the industry in a way. That's not to say that Mario Kart World isn't a good game. I mean, look at Mario Kart 8. That is one of the best-selling games of all time, selling more than Breath of the Wild as well. But playing Mario Kart World, it's fun, but it's not really kind of fulfilling anything in me to be like, yeah, I need to play my Nintendo Switch 2 every day. This does not apply to everyone, but I would have liked if the Nintendo Switch 2 did come out with more exclusive games for the system. And you know what? Let's even take that out. If we had just a lot more third-party, newer games that had come out this year on the Switch 2 at launch, I feel like that would have been a much better sell in my opinion. Having games like Street Fighter 6, Yakuza 0, Cyberpunk 2077, all great. Cyberpunk 2077 is a 5-year-old game. Street Fighter 6 is now a 2-year-old game. Yakuza 0 is a pretty relatively old game now. So in terms of games, yeah, it is a little bit lacking. If you're someone that has been waiting for the next Mario Kart forever and you have a whole group that plays Mario Kart all day long, you're good. This is meant for you. This game, the system is meant for you. But if you're someone that casually plays Mario Kart World, maybe when people come over, maybe here or there, but are looking to use the Nintendo Switch 2 for other games as well, right now you might not find the game for you. Talking about money, the console is basically the same price as a PS5, basically the same price as an Xbox Series S. Why would I choose a Nintendo Switch 2 over those other consoles? The games are so expensive as well. Explain. Yeah, so the Switch 2 is $450 just for the Switch 2, and then $500 for the Mario Kart World bundle. That is putting it in the same realm as the Xbox Series S, the PS5 Digital, and the PS5 itself. So it will come down to what your preferences are and what you're looking for. If you're looking for a game console that will be able to play the latest third-party games like Kingdom Come Deliverance, like Expedition 33, you might want to look towards a PS5 as opposed to the Switch 2, because although it's the same price, the Switch 2, as we discussed, isn't as powerful as a PS5 or an Xbox. I would have wished they had priced it a little bit lower, so maybe it was $399 for just the Switch 2 and then $450 for the bundle with Mario Kart World. I feel like that would have been a bit more digestible, but this is the state we're in, so you do have to take that into consideration with this console. Now sure, we have a console, a Switch 2 in 2025, and it has Cyberpunk 2077 on it. Great, but it runs at 40 FPS, a 5-year-old game? Will the tech actually keep up with the new AAA games of 2025? Yeah, like we discussed, the tech isn't as advanced as the consoles. That does not mean that developers might not be able to find a way to put GTA 6 on this or the new Call of Duty. We have seen developers do some magic with the original Switch and the types of games they were able to port over. So anything is possible. But like we were discussing earlier, it depends on what you're looking for. If you do want a console that runs games at 60 FPS, 4K, or 4K, close to 4K, whatever it is, and be able to play a lot of third-party games, you will want to look at other consoles like the Xbox or the PS5. Now, although the tech isn't as advanced as those consoles, the Switch 2 does have its own Disney magic of sort. Now, what I mean by that is if you look at the Switch 1, the games like Breath of the Wild, Luigi's Mansion 3, Splatoon as well, a lot of these games that were made by Nintendo, they're able to really extract everything out of the system. So I do firmly believe that Nintendo, when they're making their games for the Nintendo Switch 2, they will be able to pull out some magic, and you can only get that magic on the Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo at this point is known to not really push the limit when it comes to tech, but they do push the limit when it comes to advancements of games and the types of games that they're making. After all, this is the company that gave us Breath of the Wild, which has changed RPGs for a lot of people. What about the screen? The Switch revolutionized handhelds by introducing a OLED screen. That OLED screen was magical. And now on the Switch 2, there's no OLED screen. What's all that about? Yeah, look, the OLED LCD battle is valid. A lot of people choose different size. People prefer OLED because of the colors, everything like that. And when you do compare the original Switch OLED to the Switch 2, you do notice a difference. You do notice that the Switch OLED does have colors pop out a bit more, but that honestly fades very, very quickly. And I'm someone that has an OLED screen behind me. I have an OLED TV and I have a Switch OLED. So I see OLED screens all around me, and I adjusted to the Switch 2 really quickly to the point that I did not miss the OLED. It would have been great if they added the OLED, but at this point with the pricing the way it was, I'm afraid the price would have gone a lot higher than what it is, and it's already quite high. Alrighty then. By the way, nice bidet. But I don't have a bidet. Oh no. The Switch 2 is a great piece of hardware for what it can do. It is a substantial step for Nintendo's next console, and it is kind of the Switch Pro platform that we were all looking for a while. But with Mario Kart World being the only main Nintendo exclusive on the platform, it's really hard for me to recommend getting a Nintendo Switch 2 immediately. From my experience right now, I have played Mario Kart World here and there, but I just keep going back to my other consoles to play all these other games. After all, we have all these games like Kingdom Come Deliverance, the new Doom, Monster Hunter Wilds, Expedition 33, Blueprints, the Ultra, Stellar Blade. The list just keeps going on, and a lot of these games, or most of these games, aren't on the Switch 2. They are on other platforms. Now, if you're someone that has a Switch 1, that's your primary platform, that's all you game on, the Switch 2 is a big step up. Moving over to Switch 2 makes sense. You'll be able to play all of your Switch 1 games plus Mario Kart World. You'll get a good boost to a lot of your games as well. And you are future-proofing yourself for new games to come. An added bonus is if you're able to go to your local game store and trade in your Switch 1 and put it towards the Switch 2. Now, if you're someone that has Switch 1, but you also have a PS5 or an Xbox, and you play a lot of your third-party games on your PS5 or your Xbox, the Switch 2 doesn't really have any appealing features just yet. If you're someone that really likes Mario Kart World, no matter what, that is your game, then yes, you can pick up the Switch 2 and you'll have a great time. But if Mario Kart World isn't calling to you in any way, maybe hold off on picking up the Switch 2 until a later date. We have Donkey Kong coming in a month. Who knows when Metroid is coming out, but it does seem like it will come out this year. And I'm really hoping that we do get a surprise Super Mario at the end of this year as well. I would wait until the end of this year when we have a good set of games for the Switch 2. This way you can find a game that really calls to you, and plus you'll have a lot of cool Nintendo Switch exclusive games to try out. I should also talk about another gamer where you do have a PS5 or an Xbox, but you want something to be able to play on the go. The Switch 2 is great for that, but like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to third-party games, right now we have Cyberpunk 2077, which is great, but we don't have Expedition 33 or Kingdom Come Deliverance or Monster Hunter Wilds. So you're still limited to those sets of games that are on the Switch 2, and we don't know what the future holds. Maybe in the future we do start getting those AAA games, but like I said, it might be better just to wait for a little bit. If you made this far in the video, thank you so much. It really means a lot. I have a couple more videos Switch 2 related that are coming out very soon. So stay tuned for that, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you. Bye.